Welcome. Rocket and drone strikes by Iran hit some of Saudi Arabia's most heavily guarded sites, including U.S. military bases and oil infrastructure. Meanwhile, the president of the Pashtuns mocked the kingdom's crown prince, saying he should go kiss the spot himself. So, how powerful is the kingdom that considers itself the guardian of the two holy mosques? What kind of weapons do they have at their disposal? What's known about Saudi Arabia's military industry? The world's biggest gathering took place in the city of Riyadh. What kind of military equipment did the River correspondent see at the exhibition? Generally speaking, can the Saudis defend themselves without U.S. support? We'll talk about these things in detail now. Before we start, we hope you'll support our work with likes and comments. The Saudi state was formed in several stages. The country we know today was officially founded in 1932. At that time, the Emirate of Najd and the Kingdom of Hejaz were united to form Saudi Arabia. The relevant decree was issued by the country's founder, King, signed by Abdulaziz ibn Abdul Rahman al-Sasavza. But back then, things were pretty rough. There was no oil discovered yet on the Arabian Peninsula, so the kingdom's economy mostly relied on pilgrims, head office fees, and partly on agriculture. Accordingly, there wasn't an established royal military structure. In Saudi Arabia, this role was carried out by the desert fighters, loyal to the king, basically religious militias made up of Bedouin tribes. They fought with swords and spears, and also, they were armed with old rifles left over from the war. But starting in the late 1930s, the first oil fields began to be developed. After World War II, demand for black gold grew even more, completely changing the kingdom's financial situation. In 1945, a historic meeting was held between U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt and King Abdulaziz, where they signed an oil deal in exchange for security. According to the agreement, the United States took on supplying weapons and training soldiers. Between the two countries, deep military cooperation ties were established back then. Like many countries around the world, the Saudi armed forces are divided into several branches, with the Ministry of Defense itself made up of 5 main components. These include the Land Forces, Air Force, Navy, Air Defense Forces, and Strategic Missile Forces. Besides these, there's also a National Guard within the country to maintain order and balance the army. At the same time, the royal family's security is a special unit responsible for supplying, namely the Royal Regiment and the border troops in charge of the security of the borders, has been established. The total number of personnel in the Saudi armed forces and military structures reaches up to 400,000. They are well-armed and well-equipped servicemen. This is because Saudi Arabia ranks as the 7th largest military spender in the world, spending about $80 billion annually for this purpose. A significant portion of this budget goes to the ground forces. According to open sources, the main punch of the formation is the M1A2S Abrams tanks. This model is specially made for the Saudis, and the kingdom has about 500 of these battle machines in its inventory. The tanks are equipped with a 120mm caliber gun and are operated by a crew of 4. Depending on the armor type, the total weight of the combat vehicle can reach up to 70 tons. Despite that, the Abrams has a 1,500 horsepower engine that lets it reach speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour. Most importantly, it has air filters designed to work in desert conditions. It has a conventional system. The United States didn't supply enriched uranium-based cores to its ally. That's why Saudi Arabia's Abrams tanks are equipped with composite armor packages. When it comes to durability, they're much tougher than Soviet and Chinese-style tanks. But during the military campaign in Yemen, the kingdom lost about 20 Abrams tanks. The Houthis hit them with guided missile systems designed to take out tanks. Because of this, the Riyadh is updating its armored fist to meet modern demands. They're working on upgrading and buying new tanks. The contract signed with the United States to purchase another 300 Abrams tanks by the end of 2025 proves this. Bradley infantry fighting vehicles are used to support soldiers with firepower and to transport troops to the battlefield. This type of armored vehicle has proven itself well in the Ukraine war. Saudi Arabia's Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. It's considered the second most important operator after the States. They're armed with a 25mm automatic cannon and have anti-tank missile systems to take on heavy armored targets like tanks. The combat vehicle is operated by a 3-person crew. Besides that, it can carry 6 infantry soldiers. At the same time, the Saudis also have the French alternative to the Bradley, the AMX-10P. It performs similar roles to the vehicles mentioned above. However, its main weapons caliber is different from the Bradleys. It's smaller, about 20 millimeters. Also, its armor is thinner compared to the U.S. infantry fighting vehicle. The Saudi Royal Forces also have a wide range of combat vehicles. These include the U.S.-made Humvee, Oshkosh NM armored vehicles, and the LAV-25 and LAV-700 infantry fighting vehicles. However, the U.S. isn't their only partner. The country has also established strong military cooperation with France. The French VAU-AB Mk3 and Renault Sherpa light armored vehicles are part of their fleet. The kingdom's vehicles have ended up here in this way. The Saudis mainly rely on systems bought from the United States. Their core fleet is made up of about 300 Paladin self-propelled howitzers. Besides that, the kingdom also bought roughly 50 P-45 systems, which are the Chinese equivalent. Both can strike targets up to 40 kilometers away. But our Yodashev didn't want to stop there. This follows a trend that's become pretty popular in the kingdom in recent years, which is cargo. He became more interested in the artery systems in the vehicle's base. As a result, the Saudis bought about 150 Caesar self-propelled artillery systems from France. Most of them serve with the Saudi National Guard. It was also showcased at the World Defense Show alongside many other systems. The Caesar, like the Bradley, has been battle-tested in the Ukraine conflict, and each unit is valued at around $4 million. This system can hit targets up to 40 kilometers away with traditional shells and up to 55 kilometers with rocket-assisted shells. It can hit targets with a single strike. At the same time, the Caesar is known among the military for its accuracy. For example, when using the Excalibur guided scenarios, it can hit a target 50 kilometers away with an accuracy of 2 to 5 meters. It can fire up to 6 scenarios per minute. However, systems like the Paladin and Caesar have limited firing ranges. Considering that there aren't many natural fortifications like mountains and ravines in the Arabian Peninsula, the ability to strike from a long distance is really important here. It plays a role. For this purpose, the Saudis bought about 180 M270 multiple launch rocket systems from the United States. Also, Brazil supplied 77 Artros 2 systems. These can strike targets up to 150 kilometers away with 5 different types of rockets. If they use AVTM 300 winged missiles, the range doubles. Besides these two, the kingdom also has another precision weapon, South Korea's Chunmoo multiple launch rocket system. It's available. The Saudis also showcased it at the Defense Expo. In recent years, it's become a real star in the international arms market because it can fire several types of missiles at once. For example, the system can launch 40 rockets of 130mm caliber and 12 rockets of 230mm caliber in a single mission. Plus, it can carry 2 ballistic missiles that can fly nearly 300 kilometers each. This is twice what the US Hammer system can do. It's a pretty high number. Saudi Arabia has one of the most powerful air forces in the region. It's probably the second strongest after Israel. The core of the kingdom's air force is about 210 F-15 fighters, including the Eagle and Stray Eagle variants. These planes stand out for their combat capabilities, versatility in carrying out different missions, and advanced avionics. Except for friendly fire incidents, the F-15 pilots have so far, they've won air battles worldwide at a rate of 1,040 to 1, meaning they've never lost a single one. But they haven't been without losses. For example, during the Saudi campaign against the Yemeni Houthis, they lost at least 2 F-15 jets. One crashed due to technical failure, and the other was shot down by an anti-air missile. Besides that, the Royal Air Force also owns the Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jet fleet based in the UK. Around 2007, they partnered with the British company BAE Systems. They signed $1 billion deal and bought 72 combat aircraft. But these factories aren't the only ones from Europe where they bought fighters. In the late 1980s, the kingdom purchased Pavia Tornado planes. About 80 of those are still in active service. Ariat has seriously focused on expanding its fighter fleet to maintain air superiority. But the country has also paid attention to early warning and air surveillance operations, meaning they invested in airborne radar systems. The kingdom bought 5 E-3s from the Boeing company. Saudi Arabia bought a couple of SAB-2000 planes from Sweden. They also have a total of 11 tankers in the air, including Boeing KC and Airbus A330 tankers. Unlike Israel, Saudi Arabia doesn't have 5th-generation fighter jets. Initially, the kingdom planned to fill this gap by buying G-35 planes from China, but for some unknown reasons, the deal never went through. On the other hand, Donald Trump, a politician favorable to Riyadh, came to the White House, taking over from his predecessor. The president agreed to the request that faced opposition and approved delivering F-35 fighter jets to the Arab monarchy. If the Saudis get their hands on this model of fighter jets, Israel's air superiority will be seriously threatened. But there are some catches. The Jewish state of Washington has always made sure to stay one step ahead in terms of quality. So, this kingdom might end up getting a limited version from the United States. If measured against total domestic production, Saudi Arabia's own, it's the country that spends the most money on protecting its airspace. That's because the king's territory is huge. Plus, most of the population lives in big cities. On top of that, it has to protect holy sites, oil infrastructure, and other valuable assets. So they've set up a multi-layered air defense system. Basically, the Saudis have everything from systems that catch low-flying drones to ones that intercept ballistic missiles. The Royal Military uses unmanned aerial systems, winged missiles, and Hawk complexes against helicopters. These are actually the French curtail systems that can neutralize targets from 500 meters up to 12 kilometers away. At the same time, the Saudis have bought about 400 Avengers and another 128 defense systems from the United States. Additionally, they purchased SAM medium-range surface-to-air missile complexes from South Korea for $3.2 billion. However, the Royal Air, the core of air defense, is made up of Patriot systems. Saudi Arabia is the second largest operator of this system after the United States. There's no exact info on how many batteries the country has, but according to open sources, Saudi Air Defense Forces have 108 launch platforms. Plus, the kingdom signed a deal to buy an additional 730 missiles for these systems by 2026. However, clear and complete details about the Patriots' combat effectiveness are not available. There's no report available. While they performed well in Ukraine, they faced serious setbacks several times fighting Yemen's Houthis. In the ongoing conflict, some Iranian missiles have managed to hit Gulf states and U.S. bases. But the Saudis have an asset even more valuable than their patriotism. The U.S.-made THAAD system designed to destroy missiles high up in the atmosphere. THAAD can intercept enemy ballistic missiles from up to 200 kilometers away. It can shoot down targets from 150 kilometers away, but it has its own drawbacks. First, the system is super expensive, costing up to $2 billion. Each missile used in it can cost up to $15 million. The U.S. signed a $15 billion contract for this system, under which Lockheed Martin has to deliver 7 batteries to the kingdom. The first one is already in service. Saudi Arabia is known as one of the best in the world. Saudi Arabia is a country that uses a lot of weapons and military gear and generally doesn't hold back on spending money on its military. In terms of defense expenses, it ranks alongside the UK and France. But unlike those countries, the Saudis didn't get to this level through hard work, research, or innovation. For many years, the kingdom spent part of its oil income on buying military technology and lived under the security guarantees provided by the United States. However, for this country, it was kind of like a drug addiction. So, corruption and nepotism were running rampant throughout the armed forces. Meanwhile, the local military-industrial complex was basically left to rot. But Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman knew this couldn't go on forever. As the future king, he made the military a key focus in his Vision 2030 reform plan. To that end, he set up a major local military industry giant named SAMI, along with a government body to oversee progress. Their mission was to achieve certain goals by 2030. The goal is to increase the level of localization and keep 50% of the funds spent on weapons and equipment within the kingdom. As of 2024, this figure has reached 20%. The World Defense Show, held every 2 years, serves exactly this purpose. A Nario reporter attended the event and spoke with representatives from leading global companies. Most of them emphasized that being part of the Vision 2030 program means collaborating with Saudis. With Arab money, new research can be funded, and prototypes can be put into mass production. Ariot is asking in return to share the technology and produce military equipment right there in the kingdom. Besides that, the Saudis are diversifying their military supply sources and deepening cooperation with countries like South Korea, China, and Turkey. Interestingly, they're managing to do this without cooling down their relationship with the U.S. Still, Washington, the main guarantee for security, remains strong. The $150 billion deal made with the Trump administration confirms this. According to the agreement, the kingdom will buy F-35 fighters, Abrams tanks, and Bradley infantry fighting vehicles from the United States. What do you think? Can Saudi Arabia significantly reduce its dependence on the U.S. for military equipment? Could the country become a regional power balancing Israel? Share your thoughts in the comments.